Well, good morning, everyone. I think we'll get started. I want to thank everyone for being a part of this real estate summit. My name is Dave Osberg. I'm the city administrator here in Eagan, and when I jotted some notes down on Thursday or Friday, I was hopefully going to be able to say soon to be home of the Super Bowl 52 champions, but obviously that's not the case. So those of us who have longtime Viking fans and from Minnesota, of course, disappointed as many of us are. But in any event, we do hope to have a great program for you today where you can learn more about Eagan in the next several hours or so. Let me just give you a few housekeeping things, so to speak, for the next couple hours. We're going to do our best to have you walk out of here no later than 11 o'clock. Obviously, the other thing we Minnesotans do is talk about the weather and keep an eye on it. And by all accounts, Dakota County is perhaps in the bullseye, so we'll do our best to move this along. This is being recorded, and so we'll send it to Forrest and his staff, and then you can have an opportunity to take a look at it again as you see fit, along with the various material we're going to share with you for the next couple hours or so. So if you want to take notes, obviously you're welcome to do so, but do know you'll get all of this information before too long. We do have some vending machines on the second floor if you do need anything, and then at the break or prior to that, there are restrooms kind of right around to my right there. So we do have a great day for you. Hopefully you'll learn a lot about the city of Eagan and our community. Of course, we are very proud of all the things that are going on that you'll learn about here in the next few hours. We've kind of broken it down into anywhere from 15 to 20-minute increments. Some have a little bit of a longer story to tell and perhaps of greater interest than certain other parts, but you are going to hear from a variety of our city staff. Jill Hoopmacher, I'm going to have you raise your hand if you don't mind, and I'll introduce Jill here in a few minutes, our Community Development Director. Diane Miller, our Assistant City Administrator. Russ Mathis, where's Russ? Our Director of Public Works is in the back. Tom Pepper, our Finance Director, he'll be on in a little bit and likely on his way. Tom Garrison, our Director of Communications. Kip Springer, I think several of you visited with Kip as you were gathering. Our Deputy Fire Chief. Andrew Pimentel, our Director of Parks and Recreation, will be here before long, as well as our Chief of Police, Jim McDonald. So hopefully you'll have a great morning today. If there are any questions kind of in each block as folks come up here, we have an opportunity for that. And then, of course, at the end, I will say that not all of our folks may necessarily be here at the end. So if you do have some specific questions, it may behoove us to deal with them each block at a time. So any questions for me? Otherwise, we'll get started. Jill Hoopmacher, our Director of Community Development. So thank you. Oh yeah, just right where it's
No problem, yeah. No problem. Now this isn't working. Naturally, we just tested this about 10 times. Yep, I might need a clicker. Thank you. There we go. All right. Thank you again for being here. Diane Miller, I'm your Assistant City Administrator for the City of Eagan. Been here about 17 years. It's always fun to do these events, so thanks for coming out. I'm going to give a brief snapshot of Eagan Forward, which is a 20-year visioning program that the City of Eagan did, and it's really guiding who we are and what we do as a city. Thus, I'm going first to set that big picture tone, and then a lot of what I cover in here, get into more of the details when each of the directors come up to give their presentations. So we can go ahead. Eagan Forward, if you haven't heard of it, is a 20-year vision for the city. Started about 2 years ago. We launched our largest ever community engagement program, and we had thousands of people involved, from electronic chalkboards to real chalkboards at the library and food shelves and businesses around town, focus groups with students, seniors, business people. It really was the whole community stepping forward. And we asked them one question, and that is, what is your one wish for Eagan? And we encouraged people to think about their children and their grandchildren. And many people ask, well, why do you care so much right now? Everything's going so well in Eagan. And I think the answer was because the best don't rest. That's what our consultant always told us. And we kept wanting to push ourselves, making sure that we continued to be the thriving community that we are today. So as a result, we have the Eagan Forward vision, which is more than just a paper copy, a paper plan. I really encourage you to take a look at it. City of Eagan website, so cityofeagan.com/forward. And it lays out the strategies that we as a community are working on to make sure that Eagan is what we want it to be 20 years from now. 6 strategies that are in Eagan Forward. One, that Eagan is a place for all people, wanting to make sure we're welcoming and inclusive. That Eagan is a healthy community. We pride ourselves on being Eagan green in many ways, and that includes our good health both environmentally, economically, and as a community. We are creative and innovative with a large push on the arts that really came forward through Eagan Forward, that the arts community really stepped up and wanted to see a stronger arts community in Eagan. One of the outcomes has been the opening of Artworks Eagan across the street. Our old fire administration building is now a community arts center run by nonprofit Artworks Eagan. Eagan is a destination. You're going to hear a lot about the Vikings. That certainly is a big part of it. And there are many other great businesses and expansions happening in Eagan that Jill will touch on that really makes Eagan that destination. Updating our brand. We have a brand new logo that you will see everywhere, and we're really working to push that out. That was something the community said, get rid of the broccoli. That was our old logo. And so now we have this fabulous new energizing logo. Can you just go back one time? Thank you. And lastly, putting it to work. You'll see down at the bottom this picture of everyone holding up their circles. That was at our big launch party where we had about 300 people all say how they were going to help put this plan into action, and they have. There's been 8 teams of community members working hard to put all of these strategies into action, and it really has resulted in the buy-in that we have with this program today, and it influences everything we do at the city. So those are the 6 strategies of Eagan Forward. And some of the successes. I won't read all of these verbatim. I mentioned our new brand, our new logo, comprehensive guide plan that Jill will get into that really guides what we do from a land use standpoint. And the community was able to weigh in through Eagan Forward, saying that they wanted more bikeability, more walkability. They wanted those urban villages, places where you can live, work, play in one location. So you'll see some of those features in our updated comprehensive guide plan. A little prop and something that will be fun for all of you. There's a group, the Welcoming and Inclusivity team said it's really hard to be a new resident in Eagan, particularly for our immigrant community that comes in and people who aren't from Minnesota. And so a group of residents got together and said, what's something we could do? And they get together every couple weeks and they sew these welcome bags. And they're filled with all sorts of information about our community, from recycling programs to park programs. And when they set up water bills, when they set up their utility accounts, they come to the city hall and they're handed this welcome bag. They also have a note, handwritten note in each one of them, often from kids in the community, that talks about the farmer's market or what's their favorite park or their favorite restaurant. It's just a nice little touch, that hometown feel that we're going for. You'll see lots of new bike racks, new recycling at parks, several new parks added in for recycling, and organics collections at city facilities. These are all those healthy community efforts that have been made over the last couple of years. Make sure to point out to your clients some of the new park features. The nature park at Patrick Eagan Park, if you haven't been there, go on the zip line. It's really fun. We also have a new splash pad coming next year, which is something that community members have been asking for a long time. That's going to go up at the community center, Central Park grounds. I mentioned Artworks Eagan and just the destination piece, all of the development underway. We have the highest building permit valuation in the history of Eagan with all of the development underway right now, and Jill will get into the details of that. And lastly, I think the biggest Eagan Forward success has simply been the relationships that we have in the community. It can be tough sometimes to get to know your neighbors when you move into a Minnesota home where 6 months out of the year you pull into your driveway and go into your house, and we're really trying to bring people out and get to know one another, and that's been a huge success of Eagan Forward. There is a video that is not working today, but when we send out the link, it would be it's a 4-minute YouTube video. Great thing to show to your clients. It really gives a snapshot of who we are as Eagan and invigorates you about the community. So I encourage you to check that out when the technology is working for you. So I'm going to turn it over to Jill.
Good morning. I like that. So I'm Jill Hootmacher with the Community Development Department. For those of you who aren't aware, community development comprises building and inspections, planning and zoning, code enforcement, and economic development. And my presentation, or my part of this whole presentation, this whole morning for you, is going to be focused on current and projected demographics, planning and development trends, and a little information on some of the current residential and commercial building projects. Oh, and if there's one takeaway that I'm going to go through a lot of information fairly quickly, so I know you're not going to be able to write all that down, absorb it, but if there's one takeaway, it's just that city staff are here to help, and if you've got questions about the zoning code or city code or the planning or approval and permitting process, just call us. We are more than happy to walk through how all of that works with you or your clients at any time. I don't know what that is, but it's not part of my presentation. It's nice though. I like it. A little surprise, few graphics of things going on. So Eagan is nearly fully developed, and by that I mean that we don't have any more large swaths of greenfield land ready for development. But what I don't mean is that we're done. Eagan is what it is. We're not changing. As Diane talked about, we are moving forward. We still expect to see changes in our community. While the dramatic population growth of the 70s, 80s, and 90s is probably done, we will still have some population growth due to infill development and redevelopment. Currently, Eagan's population is approximately 67,000 people, and that is expected to increase by 2040 to 72,000. So not a huge increase, but a little bit. Another factor at play here is just the expected continuing decline of household sizes, which is a trend that we're seeing not only in Eagan, but really across the country, related to kind of major factors such as the aging of the population, delays in when families are started, and fewer numbers of children per family. Not surprisingly, Eagan's greatest population increases coincide with the housing boom. Nowadays, however, due to the limited availability of land suitable for single-family homes, we expect that most new housing, most future housing, is going to be in multifamily housing that will largely occur in the commercial areas or in redevelopment areas, such as Viking Lakes or like the central area of Eagan, up where a lot of the development is occurring right now as well. While rental units may not directly impact your work, we feel it does kind of maybe have an indirect influence on what you're doing. What the rental units bring to the community is an opportunity for future homeowners to start establishing roots in Eagan prior to buying their first home, and for seniors that are ready to leave their single-family homes, a place to stay in the community when they get to that point. Eagan's population continues to be well educated and have incomes higher than the regional average. Like most suburbs, Eagan is becoming more culturally and racially diverse. The American Community Survey says that currently Eagan's current population is approximately 24% people of color. That compares to 7% in the 1990 census and 13% in the 2000 census. And as Diane mentioned in her comments on Eagan Forward, the city is working very hard to be welcoming and accommodating to all of our new residents. With an estimated 57,000 jobs in Eagan, Eagan remains has one of the largest employment bases in the Twin Cities. We expect by 2040 to have nearly 70,000 jobs. Also, our daytime population continues to rise. It's estimated about 80,000 people right now. And by daytime population, I mean the people who live in Eagan and don't leave the city to go to school or work every day, and the people who live elsewhere but come to Eagan to work. So if you're out and about and you feel like, gosh, it seems more crowded now than it used to be in the middle of the day, you're probably right. And that is a great thing for our local economy, because what we've heard from businesses is that they want to be located where there are retail and services available for employees. And of course, there's retail and services want to be located where there's a vibrant daytime population. So all of that together, the vibrancy, means that we are not a sleepy bedroom community. We have a lot of commercial and industrial development, which really helps support the tax base for all of us. So yes, there may be more people, but that's a really good sign when you're out and about. So remember that next time that you're at a light or looking for a parking place. Like all Twin Cities communities, the Eagan is currently working on its 2040 comprehensive plan. And we've identified several key planning trends that we expect to be part of the community's dialogue over the next 10 years or so. A lot of these trends are things that, you're going to hear echoes of what Diane was talking about Eagan Forward. There's a lot of overlap between a lot of these themes. Connectivity is connecting people and destination. That can mean a lot of different things. It can mean sidewalks and trails to connect people to physical locations. It can mean technology that connects people to information, or it could even mean planning community events that connect people with each other. Active and healthy living is providing safe, convenient, and affordable choices for physical activity. An example of that would be having walkable and bikeable neighborhoods to make it easier for people to get out and incorporate exercise into their daily routines. Sustainability and resilience. Certainly sustainability has been kind of a buzzword out there for quite a while, but lately in recent years we've been adding resiliency to that theme. Resiliency being defined as the ability to prepare for and recover from major change, such as natural disasters. And placemaking, creating places that are appealing, accessible, and welcoming, and that support social interaction. Examples of that can include promoting events that recognize and celebrate social and cultural diversity, and using public art to reinforce Eagan's unique character. As a nearly, I think we skipped one. Here we go. As a nearly fully developed city, Eagan will be focused on reinvestment, both commercial and residential, in the coming years. We'll be taking a multifaceted approach to that. We understand that infill development and redevelopment need a collaborative and flexible approach. We'll be adjusting to changing market demands and technology. And we'll be monitoring, identifying areas of potential disinvestment and deterioration so that we can proactively address those before they really become a problem. Okay, now we get the great chart. Yeah, I love this one. In terms of investment, Eagan experienced a phenomenal 2017. So building permit valuation, which is the chart that you can see here, is a measure of the value of new buildings and permitted property improvements in a year. So up until last year, our highest year on record was 2013, and that was the year when the Twin Cities Premium Outlets was constructed. We also had a big storm that year, so we had a lot of roof repairs, roof and siding repairs and replacement. So as you can see, 2017 even blew 2013 out of the water. It's been nuts. So of that $428 million, about $160 million of that is related to Viking Lakes. So you take that 148, you take away 160 that was basically one project, and you still end up with a really busy year. There's just that much going on right now. A lot of that is related to a lot of big projects. For example, we issued 45 permits with a valuation of $1 million or more. So a lot of big projects, a lot of big things happening in the city. I just want to spend a few minutes kind of going over some of our development projects that we have, starting with some commercial development. Viking Lakes, of course, I'm sure you've all heard of that. That is located on a 200-acre parcel in Northeast Eagan, formerly the headquarters of Northwest Airlines. Once completed, it will contain up to 3 million square feet of mixed-use development, including the Vikings headquarters, of course, as well as retail, office, residential, and hotels. Currently under construction are the Vikings headquarters office building, a 6,000-seat stadium, the indoor practice facility, a medical office building, and a sports medicine center for Twin Cities Orthopedics. In that, the ground floor of that Twin Cities Orthopedics Sports Medicine Center will also be the Vikings Museum and a team store. Because we still love our Vikings. We're still going to go get some gear, right? Also, Northeast Eagan, White House Custom Color is expanding their office and production facilities and adding about 200 jobs, and Prime Therapeutics is building a 409,000 square foot corporate headquarters that will consolidate up to 3,000 employees here in Eagan. The first phase of that corporate headquarter project will be completed this fall in 2018. The Quarry Road development is located just on the north side of Yankee Doodle Road, just west of Central Park Commons. That development is well underway and includes the Quarry market rate apartment buildings with includes 183 market rate rental units, the Applewood Point Senior Cooperative with 96 units, a residence and hotel, and an Aldi. We have a lot happening in Cedar Grove right now. There's a couple projects currently under construction, including the Hilton Home 2 Suites Hotel and the Affinity Senior Apartment Building. The city is under contract on its last 2 remaining lots in Cedar Grove. On one of those, the city has already approved the development of a Fairfield Inn and Suites, which will be constructed directly adjacent to the Home to Hilton currently under construction. And tomorrow evening, the Planning Commission will be considering the Preserve at Cedar Grove, which is a 151-unit market rate apartment building with a full-service restaurant. Also kind of interesting in Cedar Grove, including both ownership and rental housing, There are a total of 690 new residential units in Cedar Grove that are either or have been built, are under construction, or are proposed. We have 3 senior developments currently under construction. The Affinity in Cedar Grove, which I mentioned just a moment ago, that's 174 units of active seniors. So this is really just a very highly amenitized, regular market rate apartment building. It does not have congregate dining or assisted living. It's really just being target marketed toward the 55 plus community. Applewood Point at Quarry Road, that's a 96 unit cooperative. And then Stonehaven, which is a 132 unit senior facility, and that does have independent living, assisted living, and memory care. Moving on, changing gear just a little bit to residential development. Most of Eagan's single-family development is occurring on infill lots that are being subdivided either from large lot residential or are occurring on lots where there are topographical or wetland issues that has made development up until now challenging. You can kind of see from the list here that most of these subdivisions have a handful or 2 of lots. I think that the days of the 100-lot subdivision in Eagan are probably over. It's probably not surprising to any of you. Just a little bit of information about rental and residential and rental registration, just in case any of your clients are considering that, renting a portion or all of their homes. Eagan does allow residential rental in single-family homes of 30 days or more with rental registration. There is no fee for the rental registration. It's really intended just to provide the city with contact information of property owners and rental managers, just in case there's any sort of an issue. Also, accessory dwelling units are permitted within the principal structure of single-family homes within certain standards. So just, again, this is something where it's probably best to call city staff and have us walk you through what those standards are and what the approval and permitting process is for accessory dwelling units. So we've talked a little about reinvestment and investment in commercial property. Just want to talk a little bit about promoting residential reinvestment as well. The city would like to encourage residential reinvestment through upgrades and long-term maintenance of the housing stock. One of the things the city recently has done is approving a housing overlay district that provides flexibility for lot coverage requirements on certain lots. And lots that are eligible for this are 12,000 square feet or less and were platted prior to 1971. So this really applies to some of the smallest lots in some of the oldest neighborhoods of the city, with the intention of removing some barriers to people maybe wanting to modernize and making some substantial upgrades to those homes. Also, code enforcement and property inspections. We are primarily a complaint-based code enforcement system. So that means that when a resident or someone in the city witnesses a violation or thinks they might see a violation, they call the city, we go out and investigate and address that on a case-by-case basis. We have in recent years started proactive code enforcement, where we go through kind of on a neighborhood-by-neighborhood basis throughout the city and do drive-by or windshield surveys, what we'd call, to identify any issues that need to be corrected. The purpose of that program is simply to look at livability and housing values and prevent those from being negatively impacted by any gradual deterioration that could be happening. The Dakota County Community Development Agency is another source of some tools for residential reinvestment. They have a home improvement loan program that is funded through the Community Development Block Grant Program. This offers low and moderate income homeowners 0% interest loans with no payments. They are repaid at the time of either sale or refinancing. Loans can be from $15,000 to $25,000, and some of the eligible improvements that you can use for these loans are roof or furnace replacements, electrical and plumbing repairs, insulation, and accessibility improvements. The CDA also offers a weatherization program for households that are eligible for energy assistance programs. This is a 0% 15-year forgivable loan with amounts ranging from $4,000 to $8,500. The CDA also offers down payment and closing cost assistance for first-time homebuyers, homebuyer education, and a mortgage foreclosure program. And lastly, we just want to make sure that you're aware of what services are available through the city's website. We have some permits, in fact, Permits that do not need plan review can actually be obtained on the city's website without even needing to come into City Hall. Example of those types of permits include roof, siding, windows, water heater, water softener, furnace, air conditioner, and lawn irrigation permits. So all of those permits you can simply obtain online. The city's website is also a really good source of information. You can find information on inspection records, contractor history, parcel file records, and site surveys. So the city website is a great place to begin your property search, your research as you're looking at a different property and looking at to market that or place your clients into a home. And that is really all I have for you this morning. I know that was fairly quick. Again, unfortunately, I do need to get to another meeting, so I won't be here at your break or afterwards. But if there's any questions you have now, I'd be happy to take those. And certainly, you can contact me or anyone in our department. We're happy to, again, walk you through any of the approval process or code requirements or permitting process. Any questions? No? Okay. Oh. Yes. And you can actually, for the best place to go to those is the Dakota County Community Development Agency website. And all the information, including the income restrictions for the different programs based on household size are on there, as well as contact information.
Couple of questions. The proactive code enforcement, after you notice like something that needs to be remedied, what's the approach the city takes? What's kind of the recourse there?
First, we send. Oh, I'm sorry. That question was about on the proactive code enforcement process. Once we identify a violation of the building code, what is the next step? And the next step is really just simply writing a letter and asking the homeowner to make the improvement. And we find that in 95% of the cases, that's all that's needed. Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. Have a good day. Stay safe.
Good morning. Does anybody need to stand up, or are you guys all good? All right. As Dave went around and introducing us earlier, some of you guys weren't here, I am Russ Mathis. I'm the Public Works Director for the City of Eagan, and I'll talk a little bit about Public Works in my presentation, so I won't go through all the different areas I cover, but I would imagine the first 3 words on there are something that you guys all learn when you first start in the real estate business. That's something that I learned a long time ago from you and your peers. When it comes to real estate, it's all about location, location, location. And that plays true for Eagan, the city of Eagan as well. Eagan is what it is and is as successful as it is in large part due to its location, location, location. And in particular, part I'm going to highlight this morning is the transportation that makes Eagan what it is. When you think about transportation system and you look at Eagan where it's located within the metropolitan area, look at the interstate systems that we have going through. 494 is on our north boundary. We have 35E cutting through diagonally, and even Cedar Avenue, on the western edge of it. Those are all major roadways within the metropolitan area. Proximity to the airport. That's huge. There's some challenges with that, with airport noise or airplane noise sometimes, but people love being close to the airport. Businesses love being close to the airport. Our county highways, as you look at the county highways through the city of Eagan, if you look in all of Dakota County, the county highway system in Eagan is best. There's the best setup as compared to any other city within the county. If you look at the grid system, you got every mile you've got a county highway almost, and that's significant for providing access not only to businesses but for residents too, helping them get around. And the railroad. A railroad it goes through Eagan, and if you're Coca-Cola, it's a major deal. If you're Thomson Reuters, it's a major deal. So there's a number of businesses within the community that take advantage of the proximity of the railroad. Even the Vikings, the transportation system is important to them. The proximity to the airport, their ride home from the airport maybe wasn't a nice one last night or this morning, but it's important to them that they're close to the airport, and so they were before in Eden Prairie, and they're going to be even more closer to the airport now. Existing transportation system, I would argue, and I think, I don't know if the Vikings would tell you. I know they would tell you that they like the way the site looked, and they like the proximity to the airport. I think they're finding out, as we're having more and more discussions with them, that the existing transportation system and its ability to handle the traffic that it does, and it will with them and their development, is going to become a big part of the success that they're going to have. One of the things that we're addressing currently, and right now it's in its final stages of being reviewed by some of our partners in the transportation profession around Eagan, is our event travel demand management plan. So there's going to be training camp here. There's going to be big events. There's going to be from Anthony Barr's linebacker camp for my son and his friends to Taste of Eagan and the Taste of Vikings, and with the stadium that Jill talked about, high school sporting events, and maybe even some lacrosse championships or things like that. So there's going to be a lot of folks that are going to want to come to that site in a short period of time, and we'll be prepared together with the Vikings on what do we need to do. Can we just let it go as it is and whatever happens with traffic? No, we're actually looking at it and making sure that the traffic signals will be timed appropriately, that there will be police officers where needed, that there will be adequate parking provided, and just a number of different things like that. So we'll be ready when training camp comes, and right now the estimates are that there will be, this coming summer, there'll be 3 times as many people attending training camp here in Eagan as there were in Mankato. So long-term transportation system planning, the part of the reason I would argue that the Vikings are going to be happy with their selection of Eagan as home is that we've been planning for something happening at this site. We didn't know it was going to be the Vikings. I'd like to tell you 20 years ago I knew the Vikings were coming here. I didn't, but I knew something was coming here. I knew someone was going to be wise enough to take advantage of this portion of Eagan, and so we were planning 20 years ago on how do we set up this highway system, how do we set up this transportation system to make whoever comes, whenever they come, successful. And so, you can go to the next one, Tom. Eagan has consistently planned throughout its history. I've been here for 20 years, and there was a lot of good planning going on before that. I can't take all the credit for it. But with our partners, with MnDOT, with Dakota County, with Mendota Heights, with Denver Grove Heights, other neighboring communities, even with our police department and with other local law enforcement, from the state patrol down to the county sheriff's department, as well as other cities' police departments. We've been looking at the transportation system and, in essence, wanting to make sure that Eagan can continue to grow and continue to be successful. And so if you think about it, transportation is a big deal. None of us likes to sit in gridlock or sit in traffic, and it's a safety matter as well. It costs money. The longer a truck is, it's going to take a truck to get between point A and point B. Those are dollars and cents. So that's all big factors for businesses in particular, but also us on just our quality of life. So Eagan's very proactive when it comes to our transportation systems and making sure that our transportation systems are going to be successful, not just now in the short term, but in the long term. And Tom, you can go back just for a little bit more. What we're showing in, one more. What we're showing, okay, in between, after this one. Sorry.
Which one?
Next one. Should be, that's all right. So what we're showing here is actually an improvement in another city. So if you look at the purple, it shows a number of different roadways, some of which have been built. This was a 2011 plan. And so Ames Crossing Road has been built in Eagan. The blue line that goes east-west in the middle is Lone Oak Road, 70th Street, if you're in Denver Grove Heights. That's an improvement that the county and cities are planning together in 2020. But the purple lines are some improvements. If you look down at 55 and the intersections improvements at 55, that was just done this past summer. Dakota County led that at the new it's a an old intersection with signals, but brand new signals at 55 and Yankee Doodle. But then as you go north in that purple line, it goes up into 494, and that's where you've got the double lines that are kind of a half or partial crescent moon or something like that. That's indicating a new interchange on 494. No small task. When we mentioned this to the federal highway folks, they freaked out because they don't like adding new interchanges to the freeway system. But this was an effort that Eagan, Inver Grove Heights, Dakota County, Met Council was involved, and other communities within Dakota County said, hey, we need to really look at this. Highway 55 isn't going to be able to handle, and we're looking 20 plus years out into the future. You know, Highway 55 is not going to be able to handle what we have coming forward. Again, we didn't know the Vikings were coming at that time, but this is the type of planning that the city of Eagan has consistently done, and together with our partners, we'll continue to push. Even though this is an improvement in another community, we're going to continue to push and support this effort because it's going to be beneficial to the city of Eagan as well. All right, Tom. So part of that current planning, we're working together with Dakota County. We have a number of transportation partners, as I've been mentioning, and currently we're looking at principal arterial planning for the future. So the highlighted lines on there show Highway 3 and 149, and Argenta, what was the purple line on the previous slide, that's potential arterial roadways. So arterial roadways are the highest classification of roadway. Freeway systems are arterial roadways. Highway 55 is an arterial roadway. Freeways are an easy example. There aren't any driveways out on freeways. There aren't any traffic signals on freeways. Ideally, there's interchanges on freeways. Highway 55, while it's a principal arterial, there are some traffic signals. It's not desirable, but it happens. A lot of those roadways were around before development happened, and so you kind of have to deal with it, deal with reality. But what this designation would do is it would help inform us and other local communities, as well as the county, on development ideas. Where can we have, how frequently can we have access points? How frequently can we have intersections or traffic signals on these roadways? It may justify changing things. It may justify closing some roadway connections and creating some backage roads or some local city streets that would be parallel to those state highways. But rather than having the local businesses or even the residential neighborhoods connect directly to those highways that are newly designated as arterial roadways, there would be, in partnership with the city, there would be some new roads constructed that would enhance the safety for those who are trying to take access to those roadways and also improve the flow of traffic on those roadways. Highway 3 is one I'm excited about because I think it needs it through Eagan, and it really will do a lot to enhance the safety and just folks' travel experience on there. So that's one thing we're currently working on. You can go to the next one, Tom. Traffic, as you folks know that as well as I do, that's typically, I would imagine, a conversation that you have with clients. What's the traffic like around here? This is just an example of a snapshot of a portion of the city, and then it shows the different traffic volumes and levels. Those are the things I get a lot of phone calls about, a lot of emails about. You got to do something about our traffic. Most people are concerned about the time of their commute to work, but then when you get home, that's where it really matters. What's the traffic like? How safe are their kids going to be? Can their kids just ride their bicycle to go to their friend's house or the park or something like that? Traffic concerns really ring loud and clear when you bring it home. And so we work together with the county, and we consistently monitor the traffic on our local streets. And what I would ask from you, both from yourselves personally, but also for the clients that you're working with, if you have traffic concerns, if they have traffic concerns, share those with us, let us know about them. Don't try to engineer a solution on your own and push for that. You guys pay me a lot of money to be an engineer, and my staff to be an engineer and to engineer solutions for you. Let us do that. You'd be surprised, traffic engineering in particular isn't necessarily, it doesn't work how you think it would work. And so it's kind of contrary oftentimes. If you think, well, stop sign here, four-way stop sign would solve all the solutions, or that would be the ultimate solution here. Well, you know what, it might, if you're really concerned about safety of your kids, it might make that intersection less safe for your kids if we put a four-way stop in. So anyway, that's I just wanted to throw that out there. If you got safety concerns, traffic concerns, let us hear them. We do have a pretty good handle on what's going on, but it always helps hearing from you guys. I do look to you as our additional eyes and ears out there. We can't be everywhere all the time, and you guys are there more often than I am, so you're seeing things differently than I am and the staff is. So let us know about those things. Okay, Tom. All right, drinking water. Public Works, I've been talking transportation, I'm going to talk utilities. Drinking water, it's important to all of us. We are, as Jill said, updating our comp guide plan. In it right now, in an early draft, we have a 10 to 15% reduction in the amount of water that we're producing. City's still growing. We still want businesses to come, and as Jill indicated, we still have businesses coming, but we want to reduce the amount of water that we're producing. The City of Eagan has 22 wells. The wells range from 400 feet to 1,000 feet deep, so that's how deep they go into the ground. We're pulling out of aquifers, which are like underground lakes in essence, and the Twin Cities is blessed beyond any other metropolitan area in the United States as far as its water resources and the quality of the water resources. That said, we still need to protect our water resources. We still need to make sure that they're going to be here forever, for as long as there's going to be people here living in the Twin Cities. So as part of that, together with some of our neighbors and regional partners, including the Met Council, we've looked at what's it going to take for us to perpetuate the quality of groundwater that we have, so that we can always have enough, that will always work into the future. And we believe conservatively that if we can reduce our current output by 10 to 15%, that we can continue to provide water for people as long as they want to use it. What I would let you know about and encourage you to talk to your clients about is we have had some programs in the past. In the past couple of years, we had a program if you're buying a new energy conservation, energy efficient, thank you, washing machine to replace an existing old one that's not energy efficient. We would give you some money for that through the Met Council. It'd be the city and Met Council partnering. We will have other things probably like that in the future, maybe for toilets. Toilets are a big potential for savings for water use. The newer toilets do. Irrigation, doing some monitoring of your irrigation. Frustrating thing for me and maybe some of you, it's raining out. Those irrigation systems are running full speed. So next one. So look for those things. So look on our website. You can see some of those things in the future. Sanitary sewer, you may have been involved if you're in Eagan. You would have been involved if you own property here in our inflow and infiltration program, our I&I program. And so we went and looked at every house. I think we've got maybe half a dozen to 10 left yet, but within the city, to make sure that they were properly connecting their drain tiles or their sump pump into their, pumping that back out into their yard, not putting that into the sanitary sewer system. That's clean groundwater. There's no need for that to be sent down to the sanitary sewer and for all of us to pay for that to be treated. So that's been a very successful program. I think we started it 9 years ago about. It's something that was an impact to folks because they had to be home. They had to let us into their house. Some people didn't feel comfortable with that. That's the half a dozen to 10 folks that we still have left. So we did some encouragement that would help people get over that. But anyhow, it's been a huge program, and what it's actually done now is it's reduced our sewer rates. We pay less in sewer rates now than we did 10 years ago because of the success of this program. Other cities within the Twin Cities, they still have all this groundwater or the sump pump discharges going into their sanitary sewer. So Met Council is charging them for the amount of water they're sending there. We're sending them less water, and so we're paying less. So it's a good thing. And then we also have more capacity. So without even building new sanitary sewers, we can take on more sewage, and for some industrial operations, that's important. Potato washing facilities, they like to have lots, or they discharge lots of water to sanitary sewer. Lakes and ponds, our water resources program. We've got an award-winning water resources program. It's been recognized for almost 30 years now. But there's been significant changes over the last 30 years. And so that's really impacted the way we do business. This is all about protecting lakes and wetlands. And so for our benefit, aesthetically, for what we see, but also for the wildlife, down to the microbiology, the stuff that is actually the start of the food chain and has a big impact. It's our goal to have a fishable lake within 1 mile of every home within the city. We're almost there. We have one lake that we have access to for the DNR and for us, but we're having some easement challenges with adjacent property owners, not on their part, but just because of the way it's set up to allow people to publicly have access to that lake. But you can fish in Eagan, and I think that's a successful thing. And seeing smiles like this, like in the middle of the screen, that's a good thing, and that's something that every kid should be able to grow up and have the opportunity to do. You can go to the next one, Tom. Tied as close as you can to the water resources program and protecting the surface water quality of our lakes is our storm sewer drainage. In essence, this is what protects our homes from flooding. So July 2000 storm, if you were here back then, significant rainfall event, significant flooding sporadically throughout the city, but we've done enhancements, some improvements, a significant amount of improvements to protect all the homes from a similar event into the future. But our system's getting old, and ponds are filling up with sediment as they do, washing off the streets, and pipes are cracking, our trees are growing up and roots are growing into the pipe. And so we got to make sure that we can't just stand on what was designed 20, 30 years ago. We got to make sure it still functions as the way it was designed. So we're going, and we may be knocking on your door or sending you a letter, or your customers notes that, hey, that pond in your backyard, we got to get back there. There's a pipe that needs to be cleaned out, or there's a pipe that needs to be replaced or repaired. And this isn't looking the same way it looked 20, 30 years ago. There's some big trees or bushes, or maybe somebody put a shed on top of one of our pipes, or maybe somebody built a retaining wall, in the area where we have to get access back there. So we need to work with you. We need to somehow get back there and take care of business so that we can protect everyone from flooding. So that's something that you're probably going to see as soon as the summer. Some folks will. I don't know if it's going to impact any of you, but it's coming, and that's something that I would appreciate getting your assistance with, just letting folks know that this is a storm pond. Recently we had a situation with a customer that lived on a storm pond right next to a lake. He felt it was part of the lake. He didn't like the improvements that we did to the storm pond to protect the lake. So this is dealing with the water quality, but also dealing with the flood protection. And it was a big change. It was a significant change, and we tried to explain that before we did anything. But anyhow, there's some changes coming on that aspect. So, and the last thing I'll just kind of throw out there for you is telecommunications. There we go. So this is the site of an old water tower, and we didn't need the water tower anymore. And it costs $1 million+ every 20 years to take care of water towers, just to maintain them, to paint them and such. Seemed like a lot of money to spend for something that didn't hold water. We didn't need to hold water anymore. But we had a lot of cell phone antennas on it. We had 800 megahertz, the emergency management system for the county was on it. Our two-way radios that the public works folks and parks maintenance folks were on it. So we needed to do something, and so this is what we did. And instead of having something that look like an eyesore, and hopefully you don't think this does. We thought we would be creative and make something aesthetic. So Eagan, I would say more than any city I've worked with or am aware of, is really supportive of telecommunications. Small cell legislation this past year is getting ready for more significant data flow on our cell phones, you know, being able to do more work from your homes and stuff like that. We're supportive of that. We're doing things with internet providers, allowing them to do things in our streets that they're not able to do other places, and that we haven't allowed to have done in the past, but we think it's important to you guys. We think it's important to your clients, and so we're trying to be open to things like that. So, with that, any questions? I'd be happy to answer. Sir.
In Woodbury, for their sprinkler system, they have a program where the city helps with the new Wi-Fi control,
Okay.
and they're expensive. They're like $400 or $500.
Okay.
And the city comes in and you trade that in, and they'll give it to you for like 20 or 50 bucks.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard of something like that, or if you'd be interested in something like that.
Yeah, I'm open to that. I've seen they've got a cute video. I know that they do. I've seen that. But I can talk. I know the Woodbury folks pretty well. So, question over here. Yes.
Pertaining to the traffic lights,
Yes.
specifically the left turn lane,
Yep.
the ones that are you can turn on.
Yes.
Will there be more of that coming, or how do we go about adjusting, like, in Galaxy?
Sure. Great question. We've been very supportive of that as a city and strongly encourage. The county operates and maintains most of the traffic signals in town, either MnDOT or the county. We literally have 4 traffic signals in town that are Eagans, and we only operate one, and we're trying to get rid of that one, to be honest with you. So, but we are very supportive. The council's very supportive of that, and so the county's been good to work with us on that. So we're getting as many as we can. They're telling us they can't put them all in Eagan, that they have to put some in other cities as well within the county. But those are things that are being supported, I think, not only by Eagan but other cities. It sounds where you're talking about is in Apple Valley, actually. But so.
Another question too about the lakes. Do you have a stocking program by any chance?
Well, we have a fisheries program. I didn't shout this out, but I would tell you we have the best fisheries program for any city in the Twin Cities metro area. We work with the DNR. The DNR allows us to do things that they would normally do. We do stock some lakes. So, and that's part of the access we have to provide to lakes, is so that DNR can do that, or we can do that. We don't do it in all lakes, but we do stock in some lakes. If you go to the city's website, there's a really good fisheries pamphlet or handout, and that can give you a lot of good information. So, thanks for the question. Yes.
Could you talk briefly about some of the telecommunications?
With developers, well, Tom, you want to take that?
Going to be hearing a little bit more about it later on, but on the business front, we operate a 40-mile open access, as in wholesale fiber network that any provider can use to reach Eagan businesses, and it operates in most of the central business districts of Eagan. And as Russ said, we have some partnerships with CenturyLink and some others to allow them to test new technology here, to try to stay on what we hope is the leading edge, not the bleeding edge of that. Still no major fiber to the home provider other than the CenturyLink apical test, as it's being called. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, you have airplanes and taxes between you and the breaks, so it won't be nearly as long as the last two. We want to touch on being a neighbor to the airport. Russ mentioned it. Certainly the convenience is wonderful. It's a huge attribute to living in Eagan. But as you know, the downside of living next to an airport is there is a lot of airport noise, and we certainly have that in Eagan. And you all play a very critical role when it comes to new residents coming in with realistic expectations of what the noise will bring to their home. We get about 75 complaints a year from residents, or not necessarily complaints, maybe I should say inquiries, with regard to airport noise. Why is it over my house? Why can't they spread it out more? Those sorts of questions. We do have 600 homes in Eagan, predominantly along Highway 55, 494, Northeast Eagan, that are mitigated for noise. So that's the new windows, air conditioning. There are several that also get a reimbursement program that allows them to use about $15,000 in any way they see fit to mitigate the noise. So sometimes that's just buttoning up the home. We do not anticipate any more homes in Eagan being eligible for mitigation in the coming years. Overall, despite operations going up at the airport, the noise contours, if you want to go to the next slide, Tom, the noise contours are shrinking. Planes are getting quieter. That's the good news. You no longer see the 747s or the DC-9s that would just rumble over your home. The new planes are much quieter, and the technology is going in that direction, so that's the good news. The bad news is it takes time. You know, if a plane, much like you driving a car, if it's paid for, you're not going to necessarily replace it right away. The airlines are in that same boat. They're going to use these planes that are paid for as long as they can before they buy the new ones that are quieter. So it is coming. It takes time. If you haven't seen these noise contours before, this is the forecasted contours for 2025, which is really hard to see from a map standpoint. But those in the pink are those that received the mitigation. So again, think 55, 149. You'll notice down on Cedar Grove, that pink line does not pass Highway 13. So there are no homes down in that Cedar Grove area that are eligible for mitigation. The yellow area is a buffer zone, and we use that more for our development when we decide what would be appropriate land uses with the airport noise, but that's not tied to the mitigation. So you can go to the next one. There's a great program on the MAC website, so Metropolitan Airports Commission. It's called Flight Tracker, and at any point, every airplane flying over Eagan is being tracked, and you can go in and put any time. Their staff is very helpful, or I can help you with that. It's a great tool if you want to find a home and you say, what's the air traffic like over this home? You know, go in and put several different days and choose different times of the year, because the key with noise in Eagan is we tend to get the noise in the time we don't want it, in the spring and summer when the winds are out of the south. So if someone comes in the winter, it might be really quiet. And then all of a sudden, 6 months later, it's spring and summer, and they're trying to sit on their deck going, what did I just do? So it's really important that they know the seasonal differences in the airport noise. And I always just encourage people, go sit outside that home on 3 different times of the day, during the week, morning, night, and just listen, because noise is just so individual, you know, as far as what bothers you. What's bothersome to one person, another person doesn't even hear. So it's very individual, and want to consider that. So it's a great tool to use, is that Metropolitan Airports Commission website. And then I've included, they actually have a whole section for realtors and home buyers. There's a lot of great information on there, so I encourage you to go check that out. I was trying to think if there was one other thing I was going to mention. You know, I just think get people the information is really the message we want to get out, because it's so common. And I'll tell you, one of the most common misperceptions that we hear from people is they'll call and say, you know, I live in Central Eagan, none of those lines went over my house, and my realtor told me the planes all go down Cedar Avenue. That is the biggest myth out there. Planes, the arrivals on runway 17, which is the runway that impacts us greatly, arrivals go down Cedar Avenue. And even, as you know, Cedar Avenue is not a straight road. So it's not like the arrivals are coming in like this, you know, so it's not a straight shot. So if you live around Cedar, you're going to get arrivals over you. Departures, as you saw from that previous slide, they cover all of Eagan. They're not going down Cedar Avenue. So if airport noise is really an important issue for you, check out where you're going. The closer you are to the airport, the more bothersome it is. Further southeast you go, the planes are going to tend to be quite a bit higher when they're over Eagan, so it gets a little bit better. But really check those traffic patterns as best you can, or call for help if you don't know. So that's all I have on airports. Are there any questions or questions your clients get? All right, I'm going to turn it over to Tom to talk money.
Thank you, Diane. Excuse me. I'm Tom Pepper. I'm the finance director. I've been at the city for 25 years, the last 5 years in the role of finance director. And we'll talk property taxes for a little bit here and start out with a little pop quiz. Generally speaking, and I know there's always an exception to every rule, but generally speaking, if your home value goes up 8% in a year, what happens to your property taxes? How many think they'll go up more than 8%? How many think they'll go up about 8%? How many think they'll go up less than 8%? How many think They may go up or they may go down. It just depends. That's right. The last answer is right. It depends. It depends is always a good answer, isn't it? Just click to the next slide. There you go. It depends. So if, for example, back up a little bit. If, for example, yeah, go ahead. You can see it that side. I've changed my mind. What does it depend on? It depends on three different things. The first thing is what the city and the county and the school district tax levies are. So, for example, if, let's say, your house value and all of your neighbors stays exactly the same from one year to the next, say there's no tax base growth, and the levies of the county and the city and the school district all go up 4%, what happens to your taxes? They go up 4%, pretty much. Okay? If your house value and all of your neighbors goes up 10% in a year, and there's no new tax base growth, and the city and the county and the school district levies go up 4%, what happens to your taxes? They go up 4%, right. So it's really, that's what's driving it. I think there's just a lot of, from the calls I get, there's a lot of people who think, well, if my property value goes up 3%, then my taxes should go up 3%. If my property value goes down 5%, my taxes should go down 5%. And we got a lot of those calls back in 2008 and 2009 when people's property values were going way down, and yet their taxes were inching up still. So that's what drives the taxes. New development is another thing that makes, as we have more both residential and commercial development, as the pie gets bigger, then your slice of the pie gets a little bit smaller. So adding new development makes your slice of the pie a little bit smaller. And if you want to flip to the next one, I think this was already covered earlier by Jill, but right there you can see driven a lot by what's going on with the Vikings, but there's so much happening in the city of Eagan commercially and even residential growth. You can look at that 2017 growth just going way beyond anything, more than double, I think, the highest we've ever had before. And you can see that the pie is getting bigger in Eagan. That's a good thing for people paying property taxes. And then, of course, the last thing is if your taxes go up and your neighbors don't go up, I mean, if your valuation on your house goes up, I'm sorry, and your neighbors don't go up, then of course you're going to see an increase. But you don't see a lot of that happening. I mean, I think people see that valuations are climbing at the same rate as their neighbors. So those are the things that depend, that drive your taxes. Second quiz question. I'm sorry about the small font here. We just couldn't quite figure out how to get that bigger. But commercial property taxes compared to residential property taxes. So generally speaking, again, property taxes on a typical $400,000 commercial property are what compared to taxes on a $400,000 residence? Are they the same? Are they slightly higher than? Do you think they're more than twice as high as? Or, back to our maybe higher, maybe lower, it depends. What's that? D? No, it's actually C. Right. Yeah, it's the way the property tax system is set up in Minnesota, is a commercial property basically pays double what residential property pays. So in Eagan in particular, if you want to go to the next slide, this is interesting. Commercial industrial properties in Eagan account for 23% of the total market value, but they pay 37% of the total city taxes. So for those of you that are selling residential real estate, that's a nice thing for people to know, that the strong business growth that we have going on right now is helping to subsidize their own taxes, their own property taxes. This is a comparison that we do every year of Eagan's property taxes. And again, this is just the city portion only. This is how Eagan's taxes compared to other comparable cities, a lot of our neighbors and a lot of our comparably sized cities here in the metro area. For many years, we've been pretty close to the top, meaning the lowest taxes among cities in our area. And I think that just reflects the council's generally conservative and fiscally wise use of taxes. We provide the basic essential levels of services, but not a lot of extras. And we do it pretty efficiently, we think. So you can see that Coon Rapids, the average home median value in Coon Rapids is $164,000. Taxes on that are $600. Eagan, our mean value is in the, what is it, $261, and property taxes on that are $938. So we feel we're in a pretty good place, right where we want to be there. Again, just overall, how are we doing as a city financially? We have a AAA credit rating. I think we're one of 15 or 16 cities in the state of Minnesota that has a AAA credit rating. We've had one from both Moody's and Standard & Poor's for several years. They talk about in their ratings that they do every year about our large and our diverse tax base. We aren't like just dependent on one major employer. We have stable financial operations, strong operating reserves. The council has a policy of maintaining very strong reserves in case of emergencies. We have Standard & Poor's talks about our strong management, budgetary flexibility, and liquidity. So all signs are good there. There's one more slide. There it is, right there. You may have heard of what used to be called the Minnesota Taxpayers Association. Now it's called the Minnesota Center for Fiscal Excellence. They did last year a study of the top 30 cities population-wise in the state and made their own determination based on 10 different metrics, financial metrics, as to which is in their opinion, the most fiscally healthy city in the state. And we came out on top of that. So I think that's another outside source that is providing an more independent view of how we do our finances in Eagan. So we're pretty proud of that. That's it for me. Questions?
With your growth for commercial and investment properties, how often is TIF money used? For all of the growth that's been going on lately, the Vikings included, there's no TIF involved in that. The only TIF that we have really significantly right now is the Cedar Grove area. That TIF district goes till 2029. That's the only thing that's existing right now that's very of significance. We have a couple of smaller districts that are just very small.
Considering the amount of permit growth and the percentage of that that's commercial and the percentage that they pay of overall, what's the outlook for residential taxes 5-10 years out for the city of Eagan? Is it all being reinvested back in the community, or are we going to put some relief back in?
Well, along with growth comes the need for more services, as you know. And so in this last year, we have one thing that's kind of driven growth, and we'll probably talk about that when we hear from the fire department. I think they're talking today, right? That we are making the transition from a volunteer fire department to a full-time fire department. And that requires hiring people. So in this next 2-year cycle, 2018-2019, we are hiring 12 firefighters and 5 police officers and a couple other people. So the budget's growing. We have some growth in the city to help pay for it, but it kind of, I don't see that there being
that there would be long-term relief from this growth, but I think it's just there to pay for the services that will be increasing.
I'm a little confused by the numbers that I saw this morning. You just, a slide earlier, it said value of residential homes at 267, I believe. But then earlier, we saw something that, a big spike up to 400,000. What 400,000 then?
Oh, that was just the example.
Value of
That was, I was just saying it. You mean in my pop quiz question?
Building permit value.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Building permit value.
building.
That 400 was 400 million in new valuation of commercial and residential property. Make sense? So the new growth in valuation in 2017 was $400 million. Yeah, right. Yeah.
I think several of these slides would be really helpful for us. Will a deck be provided to us?
Yeah, the video and the whole presentation will get in Forrest's hands to distribute to you. If I might, Tom, unasked question, but one of the things to keep in mind, Eagan is one of a variety of cities, of course, in the suburbs. We don't get any local government aid from the state of Minnesota, so we're not dependent on, nor do we get any LGA from the state. Sometimes you'll hear about the debate at the state capitol about LGA. So from a Eagan perspective, we don't get, the bad news is we don't get any. The good news is they can never cut it, so.
Why don't we get any?
High property values, high growth. I mean, the case you could make is we're one of the cities that the equalized property tax, we don't need it, so to speak. So it's meant to be an equalizer. I mean, it dates back to the 1970s, I think, if those have been around long enough. You remember the picture of then Governor Anderson on Time magazine, and I think that was the time when LGA was put together, among other things, to help equalize property values and property tax throughout the entire state.
Fiscal disparities.
Fiscal disparities was another part of that. So, couple logistical question. We're a little bit ahead of schedule. You want to start at 9:30? Our next speaker is here, and the other ones will be here. Do you want to take a break till 9:40? Forrest, your opinion, or what's your preference? Should we pick it up about 9:30? Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Tom Garrison, the city's communications director, and I've got a trivia question of my own. What do all of the other presentations have in common with mine?
You created them?
No. But they have all referred to the city website, I want you to know, which is under our governance here in communications. I'm going to talk to you real quickly on these 5 areas. Some easy ways to connect, new resident information that I think might be useful, social media, how we interact there, give you a sense of what we have in our bag of tricks in communications to offer you, but also would really like to hear what you need. Maybe there's something we don't have as yet that we should be thinking about. Wonder if I could take a quick poll. How many of you are residential real estate? Okay. How many commercial? Okay. I'll try to gear comments appropriately, but feel free to ask here. So, easy ways to connect. A person was asking me during the break, what is your website? cityofelgan.com. It's that simple. Why.com, not .gov. We think we interact in a very business-like way, and that's why we stick with that. We also have a special page dedicated to new resident information, and you can find all kinds of things there, everything from garbage collection and recycling, info, water sewer, parking restrictions, Eagan history. You can even find city code, so if people are thinking about doing something there, you can check it all out on that site. We are very well connected on social media, all the different platforms, if you will, and
So Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, YouTube, Nextdoor. Nextdoor has been very effective for us. I would encourage your residents to sign up for that. We're not allowed to see the postings, but we are allowed to share information. And increasingly, some of that information is very localized, okay? There's a water break in your area, or there is something of that nature. We push a lot of information via Nextdoor, but we try to be sensitive about the volume of that and the timing of that. And we can also interact, if you message us back as well and answer questions that way. It's really kind of becoming the new front desk, if you will. And we have about 9,500 followers on Facebook. It has one of the highest levels of community engagement of any city website in the metropolitan area, and we get back, we respond. So I hope you'll take a look at that. Among the things that we have, resident newsletter, business newsletter, city maps, our Eagan television operation, and 82% of our residents read the city newsletter, and it is the principal source of information that's now overtaken weekly newspapers in terms of where they look to for local information. That comes out 6 times a year. And we just got done with a business survey, and an astounding 99% of Eagan businesses rate Eagan as a great place to work. So I think there are a lot of things that commend Eagan to your clientele. And our Eagan television operation, we partner with Thomson Reuters. We're in the lower level of Thomson Reuters over there, and have a first-class, probably the best production studio south of the river. If any of you ever need to produce a small video or something for a website, things of that nature, we do that in addition to what we do with residents in very affordable ways. So would like to pause and ask a little bit of what information, as you do your job, do you ask for all the time? Are you finding it with us? We may have it, but it's not so prominent, and we can make it more so. But there may be some things that we don't have currently collected that you would like us to. Any thoughts or in that regard? There's an amazing amount of information on the city's website. I do encourage you to look at it more fully. There's also in our archived videos section, if you scroll down to featured content, there's some interesting things there, including a video we shot a few years ago, but it was Eagan's sesquicentennial in 2010. And we shot a reenactment of what it was like when Eagan was named a township, had the Pony Express rider coming out from the state capitol, going by buildings that you would recognize in Mendota and coming out to Eagan. And it's a good way to get people reacquainted with kind of the roots of this place. And I'll close with one final trivia question. Eagan was once the capital for a certain product. Who knows what that is?
Onions.
Yes. The onion capital of North America at one time, and that's part of the reason why we have trains that intersect through here. That later shifted to Georgia with a different type of onion as tastes changed. So, any questions I can answer for you? Yeah.
You mentioned that there, a location on the lower level of Thomson Reuters. Where would we get more information regarding pricing or?
I'll tell you what, I'll put out a few business cards here afterwards. Give me a call and we can be happy to follow up with you. There was also a question earlier. Were you the gentleman that had the question about the fiber as well?
That was me.
I'm sorry. Okay. Did that answer your question? Anything else we
I
could
was
say?
just more concerned with going into residential developments. I've seen some like light fixtures for the city streets, Wi-Fi built into them, fiber in ground. So I'm just curious on the residential side what.
Yeah. So we've not really been able, the city's not going to go into the business of being a competing provider, but we try to spur development. The CenturyLinks and Comcast of the world don't leave their maps with us, though we do our best to take a good glimpse at those. And I would say in the newer residential developments, CenturyLink is trying to put fiber into many of those. Comcast is upping its speeds, but they're not synchronous. So if there's somebody who's working from home and they need better, fuller bandwidth, one of the things you can do is call us and we can walk you through the maps that we do have and suggest. And for the commercial ones, it's amazing the amount of folks that go ahead and situate and make a choice on a business property without having checked to see what the connectivity is around there. We can guide you on that as well. And last thing I'll close with, you may or may not be aware of it for those of you who are with commercial real estate. This is one of the best cities to be in from a resiliency, reliability, redundancy standpoint. If you've heard of such a thing as the 511 building in downtown Minneapolis, it's what they call a carrier hotel. It's where all the folks come together to swap their signals and hand off. Well, Eagan has its own. The data bank facility on Lexington Avenue, there are now 15 carriers into that building and multiple routes out of the Twin Cities and within the Twin Cities with full redundancy, dual fed by electricity. So I encourage you to check that out as well. With that, any other questions? We'll go to our next speaker. I'll leave some cards right up here in case you'd like to go.
Which way am I going here? Here we go. All right, well, welcome. My name is Kip Springer. I'm the Deputy Fire Chief for Eagan. Chief Scott wasn't able to be here today. He's down in Florida doing the pre-build on one of our new ladder trucks. So with that, I will do my best to try and describe our organization and all of the change that we have been going through. So as you listen to all the other presenters today and they talked about the growth that's happening in Eagan, the people, the buildings, the height, the expansion, everything that's going on. I'm going to tell you the same thing from a fire perspective. That's going to be more fire inspections for us, more public education, more fire prevention. Call volumes are certainly going to go up. We anticipate an increase in our call volume more than double of what we're doing today. And when we talk about all of that, at the same time, I'm going to tell you we're doing it with half of the fire stations that we've had before. We're doing it with less fire trucks than we've had before, and we're doing it with fewer firefighters than we've had before. A little confusing, so I'm going to do my best to give you a little bit of the backstory as to why that is. This year we're celebrating our 55th anniversary as a fire department. So if we go back to 1963 when we first started, one small fire truck, tiny little fire station up in the northwest corner of Eagan where the growth was starting, and a handful of volunteers that were determined to make it work. Fast forward to maybe the early 2000s, when we were kind of at the peak of volunteerism in the fire service. Eagan had 150 volunteer firefighters, and we worked out of 6 fire stations. We built those fire stations in neighborhoods. Because we were a paid-on-call department, firefighters came from their homes, so it was important to try and build fire stations in neighborhoods so that they could get to the fire stations as quickly as possible. I'm going to talk a little bit about the transition for us moving to a staffed station model and more career staffing. And because we now have people at the fire stations, a little bit less important to have stations built in neighborhoods, a little bit more important to have fire stations built where we have the quickest access to get from the fire station to the scene. Make sense? All right. So with that, again, we went from 6 fire stations down to 3 fire stations. A little bit more strategically located throughout the city. So we have our new fire station, which is at the corner of Black Hawk and Diffley Road. Very easy access to 35E, so it kind of gets us north and south, covers almost that whole west side of Eagan pretty easily. Station 2, which is more on our north and east side of the town, right off of Yankee Doodle Road, a little east of Lexington, is our fire safety center. Kind of more to that north side to help with the industrial, commercial side of our city. And then Station 4, which is a little bit more in the residential area off of Dodd Road and Diffley Road, which will still house a great portion of our paid-on-call or part-time firefighters. With that, again, going from 6 fire stations down to 3 fire stations, still more than adequately set to respond to any emergency that happens in Eagan. Each fire station is still going to have 2 fire engines. Station 1 and Station 2, which are more in our business and industrial areas, are both going to have 100-foot ladder trucks. And then obviously still all of the other appropriate vehicles associated to a fire department. We'll have rescue boats and brush trucks and rehab vehicles and ATVs, all of the other associated equipment to be able to respond to any emergency that happens in Eagan. But again, the biggest change with that comes more because of our staffing. So a little over a year ago, the city and the fire department hired a consultant to come in and do a staffing study, try and tell us what the future of the fire department was going to look like and how we were going to be able to best manage it. You've probably seen the articles that have talked about the decline in volunteerism in the fire service. It certainly has had its impact in Eagan. Again, at one point we were up to about 150 firefighters. Today's total, as of today, we're down to about 82. The result of that staffing study ultimately told us that we need to change our model and transition more to a combination style department. I know we spoke before about a career department. Eagan is kind of more of a combination department. So we are going to have full-time staffing. Like they mentioned, in the next 2 years, we'll be hiring 12 full-time firefighters. We have 6 today, so by 2019, that'll give us a total of 18. We will be moving to a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week staffing model, starting out of 2 fire stations. So again, if you just look at the top combination department, there's still 3 full-time chief officers. We'll have 12 full-time firefighters, and we still have that part-time or paid-on-call firefighter group to be able to draw from. So Station 1 and Station 2, which are our most highest call volume, fire stations are going to be staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, beginning Monday, April 2nd. Station 4 is still going to be an unstaffed station, but we'll still have resources available to respond to it if we need to. So our normal day-to-day call volume will be managed by those 2 trucks by Engine 10 and Engine 20. If call volume gets busy, if we get the big house fire or the gas leak like we had a few weeks ago, we will still call in that part-time or paid-on-call staffing to help respond to calls. And then the other portion to that is if you look at the numbers where we talk about staffing with 2 to 3 firefighters per truck, our part-time paid-on-call staffing will also sign up to work shifts along with our full-time staffing. So it'll give us, full engine company response with a combination of both paid-on-call and full-time staffing. All right. That was kind of the short and sweet version of it. I just figured I would leave it more open for questions that you might have.
Medical training, any EMTs or paramedics on?
Yep, all of our full-time staff are trained to an EMT level. From a part-time staffing, I would say we're about 60 to 70% of our staffing are actually trained to EMT, a minimum level of EMRs. We do have a few of our full-time staff and some of our part-time staff who are paramedics through other jobs. We don't train them to that level, we don't respond to that level, but obviously to have that training is certainly helpful.
Kip, if I might,
Yes.
maybe build on it, I know you had a point on one of the prior slides. Talk about healthies. We're not the ambulance provider, healthies are ambulance
yes.
provider. Maybe put a finer point on that, not unlike this gentleman's question and what our role is.
Okay, yes, so yes, thank you for that. We don't provide the ALS service or the transportation for medicals in the city. It's a private entity, which is Healthy's Medical Transportation. They do house out of one of the city buildings, and at certain points they'll actually be housed out of a fire station if needed. But they are the paramedics, the ALS, and transport service. In the city of Eagan, we respond to every medical that comes out, whether it's a police officer or a firefighter. Somebody at some level will respond to that regardless of Health East's position. So we're in the process of a transition right now. Right now, police respond to every medical. And then the fire department will respond to any major medical, any trouble breathing, chest pains, anything more severe than that. With this new staffing model and with us being staffed 24/7, we see a little bit of a transition that we will start going to more medicals in the next year or two. Yes?
What's your average call time?
Uh,
To get to a fire or to get to an emergency? What's
Yep.
your
Our average call time right now, because we have a little bit of a mixture of during the daytime, today we still have staffing during the daytime, but in the evenings and the weekends, it goes back to that page-out system. Our average response time is probably 8 to 9 minutes, maybe 10 minutes more for the unstaffed side of it. What we anticipate with this model, at least initially with the 2 stations being staffed, is to get down to around 5 to 6 minutes for a response time. If we ever get to that point in our system of building out to staffing Station 4, that would only help decrease that response time.
Kip, if I might, maybe another unasked question, and maybe it's familiar to everyone, but we in the city of Eagan, we don't do the dispatch. We're part of the, 12-city consortium along with Dakota County that does it's called the Dakota Communication Center. If you ever go down, Highway 46 and Highway 3 at the county shop there, that's the dispatch center for the entire county. The county doesn't do it, per se. It's a 12-city and Dakota County consortium that is a part of, they do all the dispatch for the city.
Yep. Correct. So anytime somebody calls 911, it goes to Dakota County, and they will decipher, which city it goes to, if it's police, fire, health east, all of those. Right. Any other questions? Yes.
With that station on Black Hawk, how often do they go out of there with the sirens on a daily basis?
We do our, yes, roughly, again, if you split our city up into thirds, we did about just under 1,800 calls last year. 600 calls probably come out of that station. That's actually one of our higher call volume stations. We do our very best to try and minimize, obviously, the calls that we have to have the lights and sirens on. We do have preemption devices to help trigger that stoplight on the corner, so hopefully we can at least get out, turn the corner before the sirens kick in.
So are you thinking only twice a day then from that location?
Yeah, on average, 2-3 times a day. And again, we're not always at the fire station when the calls come out either. During the daytime, we're busy with fire inspections and public education, and so any calls that come out during the daytime, there's a good likelihood that we're out and about as well. So hopefully we'll keep that to a minimum. Anything else? All right.
So I'm handing out my business cards. My name is Andrew Clemento. I'm the Director of Parks and Recreation for the city. And it's not an option. You have to take one of these cards. Partly because I always have a box of cards left over whenever we redo our logo. The other reason is Parks and Recreation is the fun that you help sell, right? And you know what people want out there. And if I am not knowledgeable of what people want, then I can't have a great park and recreation system, and you can't sell houses in Eagan. So help me out by dialing me up, sending me an email, and telling me all the great things that are out there that maybe we don't have that people are looking for, because I think that is something to always keep in mind. With Parks and Recreation, we are the fun department. Let me get this starting to move. We're the quality of life. I'm conveniently in this presentation sandwiched between the fire department and the police department, and I was trying to think of a couple good jokes for you this morning, but I think I'm just going to stick to the fact that those are both very serious providers within a city, and I'm just going to balance that out with a little bit of what do we have for quality of life, right? 15 minutes obviously is not a lot of time. I could probably speak to any of you about that length of time on any given park or any given amenity with our parks. But the green space, the enrichment that Parks and Recreation provides, for many it's the green space, for many it's the athletic fields, for some it's the programming and you know, different opportunities, whether it's arts. We encompass a lot in this department. Value enhancements, right? You know, I hear commonly when people say, oh, you know, I bought my house in Eagan because of the great park system. The majority of our park system here in the city really was built during the late 80s and early 90s time period when the boom was really happening and hundreds and hundreds of homes were being built in a relatively short period of time. What we're dealing with now is we're seeing some of the aging of that infrastructure, and so we're working to not only replace that and update that during our capital improvement program for parks. We're also looking at where can we add those new amenities that are out there that people are looking for and want. And I'll get a little bit more into that later on in the presentation here. I think it's impressive to look at a dollar value. Over the next 5 years in our capital investment program, we're going to spend about $3.5 million, and this is all over the city. We very strategically look at and equitably balance our investment throughout the city. Okay, we don't want to dump just all of our resources in one part of the city. We want to make sure that we're giving a little bit of love throughout the city for all the 57 parks that we do have in our inventory. Again, 57 parks, that's a good number of parks. We have additional small green spaces that are unidentified, undefined parks that help add to what is over 22 acres, okay, of open space and park space per 1,000 residents. That's a metric that the Trust for Public Land and National Recreation and Parks Association uses to really kind of show how much is out there. Okay, that's city-owned parkland. You add the state land to our northwest. You add Lebanon Hills and the Dakota County-owned land to our south, and now you're over 50. Okay, the national standard that many people look to get to is 12. All right, so we're in really good shape just with the city-owned properties, but you add all green space, and it's hard to find those numbers anywhere else. Minnesota is very strong if you look at national standards. You know, I came here 4 years ago from Colorado, and there's very few places and cities in Colorado who have that 50 acres per 1,000 residents. So we're very lucky here and enjoy a wide variety of green space. Recreation programming. Again, we have programming from senior classes over at our community center to preschool classes throughout the city to everything in between. We actively collaborate with the school districts. I think this is somewhat unique, but it was built into our master plan this last time around to make sure that we're not over providing where there's adequate others that are providing classes for the community, and where there are gaps, who's best to fill those gaps with programming, because it's not always the city, it's not always community ed, it's not always the Y, it's not always religious institutions. But when you come together and you talk and you say, hey, who has the resources to do this? Where's the redundancies and where can we become more efficient? I think that helps really streamline and make a very unified system, if you will. We have special facilities in Eagan too that are well known across the state. Cascade Bay, has anybody ever gone to Cascade Bay? Okay, great water park just right across the way. This time of the year we don't think too much about water parks here unless you're escaping to a remote vacation somewhere tropical. But Cascade Bay, along with our Eagan Community Center and then our Civic Ice Arena, are three great facilities. We also have the Eagan Art House. We have public art throughout the community that we're excited to get installed and do more in the years to come. But there's a lot of additional facilities here. I'm just going to throw some pictures up here just to tease you all with some of the stuff we have. On the lower right there is the one of the art benches that we installed last year. Our Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission had a long discussion on public art in this city and how do we add to it. One of their biggest goals was to add what we call functional public art. Okay, we're installing benches. Can we make them art benches? And that way we're not paying a ton of money. These benches that we spent $3,000 for the full commissioning. Okay. A regular bench is about $2,000 to install. So, you know, net spending an extra $1,000 and getting a very nice. This one is along the Highline Trail, down by Metropolitan Park. We have 3 others that we put in last year at Bridgeview Park, O'Leary Park, and then I don't know why Walnut Hill Park. They're all very unique. We're going to be putting in 4 additional ones this year, and it's quite the process. Picture up the top right is the Eagan Community Center, and then a picture along our trail system. Programming-wise, in the wintertime, I had to put an ice fishing picture in here. We have a load of skating rinks across the city. You know, again, coming here from Colorado, I didn't know what ice skating was, and then you come to the state of hockey, and my goodness, I didn't know the ground stayed frozen that long. But if there's ever a department to take advantage of that, that is Parks and Recreation. So we have 15 locations where there's skating rinks, and then a number of pleasure rinks throughout the city as well. Picture of the art festival, a car show, and then the youngster down there in the bottom right. Special facilities, I think you've seen the Sperry Tower. You know, it's very unique. The community center is a great facility, 77,000 square feet. We host hundreds of business meetings there, about 70 weddings a year. It's a very, very affordable, very nice wedding venue. And then that picture in the top right on this slide is of our new nature play area that we just installed last year. It was a big investment, and it's receiving a lot of really positive comments from residents. It's over in Patrick Eagan Park. You know, again, you know, I thought when I was putting this presentation together, what do you all want to hear about our park system? You know, great parks. There's a load of great parks around the world, right? And again, people, I think, when they're out and they're looking for homes, I know when I was looking for a home, now I might be a little influenced by my career, but you know, I wanted to live close to a park. I wanted to be somewhere where there's nature space and so on and so forth. So, you know, great parks really enhance the community one lives in. National Park and Recreation and Park Association and City Parks Alliance both are really big right now, trying to find ways to measure those metrics and try and work with the finance people of the world and say, what is that dollar value that investment in parks then return for a community? I'm very eager to see what that research comes out to show here in the next probably 5 to 10 years. Great programming, keeps people engaged. Great volunteer opportunities. It helps with the efficiency of operations. It gives people something to do and give back to their community. We have a very thriving volunteer program with hundreds of volunteers in our database here. We have a volunteer recognition event every summer, and it's about 150 people strong that show up for that. And it's wonderful the amount of hours that people give back to the city, and specifically many of our events and programs. Great facilities, again, I think when people are looking to go somewhere, they don't want to have to travel 30 miles to go to their nearest athletic facility. They don't want to, have to take their kids, across, the Twin Cities to go to the water park. They want to see and have a lot of that in close proximity to their home. And then great partners. We do have a lot of wonderful organizations that give donations and sponsor a lot of our community events. And some of those, I won't go into a lot of details, but with regards to our events, we very, again, strategically try and have those placed all throughout the calendar year and throughout the city and celebrate really what we can help add value to people's lives. Market Fest. Has anybody here been to Market Fest? If not, you're missing out. You should go Wednesday nights all throughout the summer over at Central Park. Again, a couple of nice pictures that we have upper right is investment in the baseball field that we just put in last year. Lower left is a picture from an event last year called the Big Rig Rally. You'd be amazed how much kids have fun getting into big trucks and mowers and whatnot. Great event, occurs in June. It's on a Thursday evening. It's on a last day of school. Parents come out. It's a wonderful event. Thousands of people come over to our central maintenance facility. And then the bridge over at Blackhawk Park. Again, great programming. This is where you all can help me out again. What do you hear? What do you see? What do you know? Don't be afraid to share that with me. We have a very balanced offering. We put out program guides 4 times a year with each quarter pretty much. And they're very comprehensive, and a lot of work goes into those. A lot of history of what programs have worked in the city. Again, going back to those discussions we have with the school districts and whatnot, we want to make sure that we're adding when we add classes. 1, there's a demand for it. 2, it's not redundant, and it's going to really give the experience that people are looking for. So, our Lone Oak room over at the community center is strictly reserved and used for senior programs and active adult programs throughout the day. Volunteer opportunities, we have pickup days, cleanup park days. We have a variety of events. We have another unique facility I didn't mention earlier is Holtz Farm down in the southeastern part of the city. Have a couple great events out there, almost too successful because more people show up than sometimes we can accommodate. And again, we're trying to figure out do we spread out and do more events? Do we have them longer in hours? And how do we meet those needs? Here's just some more pictures of some of the facilities we have. Lower left, and I'll talk about this, tennis, a life sport that, kind of comes and goes with popularity. Well, I'm not going to ask to find out who all here plays pickleball, because I'm pretty sure everybody in this room is going to be playing here in the next couple of years. Again, this is just one list of many of our partners. We have more than that's on this list. Again, we work with all the school districts. Eagan Hockey Association is not on there. The fact of the matter is there's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of collaborative works that come together to really make a great park and recreation system. So something to just talk about and wind up on. Capital investment program. A lot of work goes into our capital investment program. A team of staff meets really starting this early in the year. We're putting together requests for proposals and getting the 2018 project started as we're starting the conversations on the 2019 list and starting to get cost estimates and starting to, again, reach out and look at where are the needs on what we have on the 2019 list. Is it still relevant to what we need? We do structural integrity testing of facilities to make sure, can we push it a little bit longer on the list if something else has a priority that needs to move up. A lot of our capital investment is funded through park dedication dollars from developments. Again, all that corporate development that you heard of earlier today, all that comes with a certain amount of park dedication funding too. As they develop, they pay us a certain amount, and it's driven by state statute, but that goes into a fund to then continue adding to our park system to meet that continued demand, both for the residential but also the corporate members of the community. We've really worked hard over the last couple of years to take our engagement of the community up. So when we have a project, we'll have open houses. We'll instead of just sending out a letter, it used to be send out a letter, have an open house, and hope nobody shows up, okay? Right? Now we send out a letter to a wider radius than we need to. We hit social media in every platform that we can, and we literally, like I did with my business cards, I don't like when nobody shows up, right? Because again, that doesn't add anything to the conversation. It doesn't allow us to make sure we're giving the people what they want. Again, the best park systems, the best situations are when we're putting in what we know is actually going to get used and is actually going to bring value to the community. So again, the Advisory Park and Recreation Commission, a great group of people, volunteers in the community, appointed by the council. They actively work on the CIP with staff for a period of about 3 to 4 months before then we kind of finalize the plan and move forward with the presentation to City Council. I talked a little bit about the funding mechanism, and then again, today's world, we want to make sure that we're equity focused and providing a park system that gives a little bit of something for everybody. Again, here's my contact information. You have my business card. There's pins on the back counter as you walk out. If you want to grab some of those, just to remind you of Parks and Recreation and that you have homework to do after today's presentation. Sir.
Andrew, any plans for training camp this spring? I mean, it's the first time in Eagan. Certainly Mankato's done an awful lot with it in the past. Have you got any plans for?
With regards to Parks and Recreation, we haven't had too many of those conversations yet. I think that with that decision and with all the playoff intensity, I think we'll probably get down to really getting into details on once the depression hangover is over here in hopefully a few days. We'll look at another group of those active partners in Eagan are the athletic associations, and those really are independent from the city, and they're very, very big, very active. I know they're having discussions with them as well. So is there going to be something? Yes. Is it definitely going to be Parks and Recreation focused? I can't give you an answer to that right now. Other questions? Sure.
Well, I think one of the hidden gems in Eagan is the Eagan Fitness Center at the Eagan Community Center. I've been an Eagan resident for decades and didn't even know it was there, although I've been in the community center many times. It's a wonderful facility, and I think it could use some more publicity.
Great question, great statement. I feel the same way. And with great amenities like a fitness center, what makes it great? It's smaller, it's quaint, it handles the load that it has right now very well, and I think that's what a lot of people love. So we are trying to find additional ways to market that facility, but we want to keep it within a respectful growth for the current members. I think with that facility altogether, we're moving some of our Parks and Recreation offices over to the community center to help really kind of have more of a presence, as that is our focal point for our department. City Hall and the police building is going under a reconstruction starting here in just a few months, and so we're going to move our recreation, clerical, and some of our other staff over there to again help focus on what additional ways can we get more people to that great facility. Sir.
So they mentioned earlier about the city being mostly built out from a development perspective. How does that fall in line with the land use perspective for parks? And are 57 parks and 50 acres per person enough, or do you have plans to add more parks over the next 5 to 20 years?
Good question, sir. I think when you look at the 50 acres per 1,000 residents metric, that's probably more than enough, but yet, you can always ask that question, how can we define some of the additional spaces? Some cities are getting creative, and all of a sudden they're going from, we have 50 parks, now we have 80 parks. I don't think we want to get too aggressive in identifying, half-acre parcels and calling them parks. But it's one of those things where We are going to have some park space up in Northeast and at Vikings Lakes territory. That will be a part of that park dedication that comes from that development. Once that's developed, there's a few more tracks that we're going to probably look at developing over the next 5 to 10 years. But you know, we're somewhat landlocked as well. So a lot of our focus is redevelopment of our current assets as well.
Splash pad? You mentioned it's coming this
Yes, there is 4 relatively exciting and big projects for 2018. Splash pad at Central Park. It's going to be located right behind the Market Fest grounds by the pavilion there. We have a skate park that's going to be redone over at the Lex Diff complex over at right there at Lexington and Diffley Roads. And then an 8-court pickleball complex over at Quarry Park. You know, a lot of cities are putting in 6 and then they're saying, oh, I wish we would have done 8. So we've learned from Apple Valley and others that have complexes that will put in enough to meet demand in that sport. That's really, it's quite, it was a fad and then it kind of proved itself and now it seems like everybody plays, and that was my comment from before. And then we have an expansion of George Ullman Park of 4 acres to the north of that park. So, sir.
Any plans for a pool at the ECC, an indoor pool?
You know, with the Eagan Forward discussions that occurred in 15 and 16, there's a lot of discussion about it. It didn't really move forward in the team number 4's main request. Their main request was a splash pad. There's a couple pools and schools that we're working with to try and get more access to the community. I don't know how we'd build it into that property per se because it's somewhat landlocked around the building, but it's definitely on the list as we hear what needs are in the community. Any last questions? Thanks for your time today.
Chief McDonald's next. Thank you.
Am I the last speaker?
Yeah.
45 minutes? Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for that. Good morning, everybody. My name is Jim McDonald. They do call me Mac. I've been with the city for 30 years, so I have seen a lot of development and seen a lot of law enforcement things too, which I want to talk about today. You know, as I was putting my presentation together, I was thinking, you know, you need to know your audience, right? And I was putting myself in your seats, if you will, and I said, okay, when a real estate agent goes to, and they want to cinch a deal on an Eagan property, they're probably talking about taxes, probably talking about parks and recreation opportunities and future development. And I was kind of wondering, do they try to sell the Eagan Police Department? And I was, in the back of my mind, not being a real estate agent, I'm thinking, probably not. But what I want to do is talk a little bit about what the Eagan Police Department does and give you really about a 10,000-foot view of some of the things that we do and how we engage our community. So, and I love the questions, and being that I'm the last speaker, at the end of my presentation you're going to see a big green question mark. And I think that's going to be the key for questions for everybody, right? Okay, let's go. All right. First of all, the city does biannually, they do a study, residential survey, and they survey residents, effectively ask how the city's doing. These are the results of a 2016 residential survey, and I think many of us are across the city are proud of this, especially police and fire. A lot of the residents are happy with the service that we provide. They feel safe in their neighborhoods. They don't really report too many crimes, and they like the fire protection too. This is similar to previous results. You'll see that second bullet point where residents have virtually felt the same for the last, I don't know how many years, frankly, since I've been here. When they've done these surveys, police and fire have usually done really well. I think the survey before this 98% of the people surveyed, and it was 400, rated the police and fire services as excellent or good. So, you know, it's a figure that we're very proud of. Okay, statistics, right? Bear with me. This you can find on our website, and if you're really a statistic geek, these are posted monthly, okay? And if you look and see how this is broken down, I'll just explain it to you quickly. The Part 1 crimes, that is effectively what media and people in the profession call violent crime, and there's 8 of those. Homicide, rape, robbery, aggravated assault, burglary, theft, motor vehicle theft, and arson. That's what's characterized as violent crime, okay? Those are Part 1s. This sheet is through November of 17. It does a year-to-year comparison. And you'll see that, I don't know if this laser will work. It does. But you'll see right there, that's the number of actual reported crimes that Eagan police officers have taken through November of 2017. And you'll see that's about 1,100. Yep, it's 1,100. And virtually no increase from the previous year, okay? If you are going to be a victim of a violent crime in Eagan, it's likely going to be theft. And I just want to caution you, and I want to just, for statistical purposes, theft is anything from anyone going into a convenience store and stealing a candy bar to someone stealing a $1 million piece of construction equipment from a road construction project, okay? Those are both violent crimes. And, you know, I'm not trying to hype this. In fact, I want to put this in context. When I say you're going to be a victim, if you're going to be a victim of a violent crime in Eagan, it's going to be theft. Many of our theft reports are someone reporting something getting taken out of their yard or their car or those sorts of things. They're not reporting those $1 million thefts, okay? The Part 2 crimes, that's really everything else that isn't a Part 1. So when your property gets damaged, simple assaults, DWIs, those are Part 2 offenses. They're a little bit higher. You can see there's about 1,300 of those reported through November of 2017. It's a little bit higher, but they're the non-violent crimes. And red is good. That means the crimes have actually dropped. But the greens are the ones that we should be concerned about or be a little bit more concerning. And if you look at the top towards where it says Part 2 crimes, you see we've been getting a lot of frauds and forgeries. Those are very complicated crimes. What we've been experiencing is actually groups coming in from out of town and preying upon our merchants. They're using counterfeit checks. They're using counterfeit credit cards, and it's not just like 1 or 2 people. It's you know 5, 6, 7 people acting as a organized crime group to perpetrate some of these crimes in our businesses. One thing I'd like to point out too is this is the very bottom where it talks about total calls for service. A call for service, if I can explain, is anything that we do for a resident is a call for service. So anything from investigating a murder to stopping a car and issuing a warning. Anything we do that's recorded is a call for service. You see through November we've had 47,000. When I last checked for the end of the year statistic, it was almost 52,000 calls for service. We are the busiest law enforcement agency in the county, and if you divide 52,000 divided by 365, you get about 140 calls a day. So our officers are very busy doing a lot of things. And one thing about calls for service and about police work, police do other things than just investigate crime. So right now, if you were a loved one, were having a medical emergency and you called 911, it's a police officer that's going to show up at your door. And that is not a crime. Okay, if you have an alarm that goes off at your home or your business, and you call and 911's called, it's a police officer that shows up, that is not a crime either. Okay, in fact, if you parcel all this out and you look at our top 10 calls for service, there's only one crime that's listed in there, and that's theft. Everything else is we're going to medicals, we're going to alarms, we're looking at suspicious activity, not crime related. Okay. All right. These are crime statistics over, well, since 2007. The part ones are the darker shade of red, and the pink, if you will, is the part twos. And you can see how pretty much everything is trending downward since 2007. One thing though is you look at 14, you can kind of see those part twos are somewhat leveling off. And those, I think, will remain steady based upon some of those frauds and forgeries that we've been dealing with. But it's good to see that the violent crime, if you will, has been dropping. Well, and you know what, as long as we're on that topic too, that's something that we're very proud of. And as much as it's easy for the police department to stand up and take a bow, we are responsible for managing crime. I would say something related to you folks is one thing that's nice about Eagan is the good school systems that we have, the recreational opportunities that Andrew talked about, a lot of religious institutions that are here that people are involved in, and certainly a responsive police department. I really do think that that's helping keep crime in check in this city. So congratulations to everyone that helps us as well. For community engagement, this is something we're proud of too. Since 2008, well, let me explain this. On the left side of the graph is the number of neighborhood block parties that, those numbers represent neighborhood block parties. Of course, the bottom line is the years, okay? When we started doing National Night Out, we've actually, I think the first time we did it 20 some odd years ago, we had maybe 22 parties, okay? Neighborhood parties, and that's where residents, they register their neighborhood, and the idea there is to get a police officer and a firefighter to come and talk about crime issues in their neighborhood. Okay, it gives us a one-on-one opportunity to interact with the residents. Okay, circa 2008, you can see where we had about 150 block parties or neighborhood watch visits that we went to. So in 8, police and fire members went to 150 parties on the first Tuesday of August. Okay, you can see how that steadily increased from 2017. 2017, we went to over 206 neighborhoods. That is all hands on deck for police and fire, and something that we're very proud of. And honestly, I don't think we can do many more in one night. And I don't want to have a week-long National Night Out celebration. But truthfully, when our officers go there, they're only spending about 15, 20 minutes. It's really a quick hit. But as you can imagine, 200 parties to go to in one night, it's pretty impressive. All right, a little bit more about engagement. These are some of the publications and some of the engagement initiatives that we started. Has anyone ever heard of the Blue Blotter? Yeah, you can. That's available online, and actually my assistant distributes it, and it's kind of a little pokes fun a little at some of the criminals that we deal with. It's about 3 pages in length, and it really covers a month of activity. Okay, so we put 12 of those out a year. If you're not on an emailing list, just Google Blue Blotter and you can get on it. Okay. Our annual report, which those statistics that I showed you early on in the presentation, that's available in our annual report. We put one together yearly, again available online. And then social media. Currently, we have about 6,000 people that are following us on Twitter. And you know, does anyone follow us on Twitter? All right. If you don't, I'd suggest you do. And I think the people that follow us would agree that if a question is posted, like if someone's wondering what's happening in their neighborhood, it's not unusual for us to get a question on there that says, hey, what's happening on Hawthorne Woods and Diffley? And we answer. We'll use our 140 characters and we'll answer as best we can. I guess now it's 280, right? But and then another initiative that we just started is our own Facebook page for the police department. I think and those two, all that stuff is really designed to do some engagement with the community and social media. Let's face it, folks, it's where it's at, right? So we're trying to capitalize on that as well. That's that big green question mark. Oh, yes.
How many officers on duty at a time usually?
Depends what time of the day. Right now, there is, well, let me just say this. Our city is divided into 5 patrol beats. And what we'd strive for is to have an officer assigned to every beat 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. What we characterize as our busiest time, which is about 9 o'clock in the evening, so we staff additional for that. So between 4 p.m. and 2 a.m., we add another officer to those beats. So between those hours, we have 10, and then outside of those hours, we have 5. And those are officers that can actually go out and take calls. We do have sergeants that are responsible for those shifts, and on occasion, on many nights, we have a canine officer that's just like roving the city to act as a support officer, if you will.
Another question, do you have a cybercrime group?
We do. I have officers that are specifically trained to analyze computers and cell phones. Really, that is the future of us detecting crime. I'm not kidding. Anytime we have a lengthy investigation, be it a homicide, some sort of serious assault, we always collect phones. Okay? So these officers are not just trying to detect people that are trying to infiltrate a business, but they're trained to uncover evidence that's going to help for other crimes as well. Okay, so, you know, I don't know what your definition of cybercrime is, but we don't have people sitting on a computer, you know, trying to detect, you know, hackers, if you will. Okay? Mm-hmm. Yes, in the back.
One of the coolest programs I had was the Citizens Academy class. I took it and it's advanced. I would suggest it for anyone. I love Thursdays because I had that class.
Yeah.
Are you going to expand that on? It's so hard to get into that class.
Yep, I'm sorry, what's your name? What Mary's telling or suggesting is that the city has a Citizens Academy. The police department has a Citizens Academy we do every year, and then an advanced Citizens Academy every 2 years. We usually take about 30 residents, and when we say that it's available, that we're doing it, when we're opening it up for registration, I'm not kidding you, it fills like within a week. But to your question is, we don't plan on expanding it any further. And really with our remodel coming up, I don't know if you talked about that earlier, briefly. But with our remodel coming up, we are going to have some space challenges, so we will likely suspend that for 2018. So, sorry, Mary. Citizens Academy? Yeah, we take a sample of the population, so we, you know, advertise for people wanting to come in. So we get about 30 residents, and we actually take them through the nuts and bolts of becoming a police officer and what an Eagan police officer does in this city. So we'll talk about an investigation one night. We'll do use of force one night. We'll talk about DWI one night. And I think a highlight for many, and Mary, you might agree, is the ride along. So all the participants that, if they want to, have an opportunity to ride with a police officer for 4 hours. And then at the end, and again, this is optional, is we'll bring the people down at the range, down to our shooting range, and they can fire some of the weapons that we have too. So.
Isn't getting tased an option too, Chief?
Mr. Osberg, you can get tased if you like. I wouldn't recommend it. I would not recommend it. Yes.
How is the opioid crisis impacting you?
We have, that is a public safety, or I'm sorry, public health issue that we are seriously involved in. I'm sorry, opioids. In fact, it's really, how can I characterize it? It reached my desk when I started reading reports of some of the overdoses. And what we did is we instituted a Narcan program. So, you know, a lot of these people are addicts, they're users, they're not criminals, and it was just sad when you see these people that are helpless dying. And so 2 or 3 years ago, we instituted a Narcan program. That's a medication that the officers carry, and when we find someone in crisis, we administer it, and I tell you, I think we've had 4 or 5 saves since. So. Anything else? Yes, sir.
Medical training for your officers?
Every year, when they come to us, they are, they're first responders, which means it's a 40-hour first aid class, but then they get yearly training as well. Mm-hmm. We've had officers deliver babies, help people who are having heart attacks, so, yeah, and that's a necessary function of what we do. Mm-hmm. Anything else? Wow, thank you.
One more. I'm sorry, did you say you're hiring? Not for me.
We are in the thank you. We are in the process of hiring 5 officers. We're fortunate. We had 2 officers that are just retired, so we're trying to fill those. And then with all the development in our police activity, the mayor and the council had approved hiring 3 more for 2018, and then 2 more in 2019. So that'll bring our sworn level to 75.
And just to add to that, any in K-9?
We have 2 in K-9. Yep.
To hire?
No, we have 2 existing K-9 officers. Yep. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
How are you partnering with the schools?
Any way we can. We have 2 officers assigned as school resource officers. We exchange a lot of information about crime, and I was just in the school last week. I teach a criminology class. I try to go in and you try to make those connections, and you know, kids need to see police in always not in a confrontational manner. So anytime we can get a cop in front of a group of kids, we do it. Anything else? All right.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you, Dave.
That,
Can I just say something?
you may.
I normally don't get an applause like that.
You know, in all seriousness, the chief and all the other 8 or 9 folks that you saw in the last couple hours or so in their departments all deserve a round of applause. One of the expectations that our city has is to be responsive when you call, you email, and Chief McDonald talked about whether it be Twitter. We're going to try and get back to you. Our city council, my predecessor Tom Hedges, who was here for many years, and I've brought it since I started about 5 years or so ago, is we want to be responsive to the public, even if it's not good news or so. We try to be very transparent and let you know the good and the bad and everything in between. So hopefully you learned a lot today about the city of Eagan. I do want to, before I turn it over to Forrest, he's got a couple of housekeeping items, if you will, before we go. We will be open for business when City Hall and the police station are remodeled. You might come in here in the summertime and have to dodge some construction workers or some construction material, but we will be obviously open for business. It might be a little hectic for 18 months or so, but hopefully at the end of the day it'll be a police and City Hall that you'll continue to be proud of and continue to provide service for you and your clients and all the businesses in Eagan. So if there aren't any final questions for us, I think Forrest wanted to close things out and talk about another event or 2 coming up. So thanks for being a part of it.
Well, thank you everybody for coming today. It's a great turnout, especially on this snowy morning. One thing that I think a lot of new residents to a city want to know about are schools. And so on January 25th, so this Thursday, School District 197, which is West St. Paul, Mendota Heights, as well as Eagan, is hosting an event similar to this, where West St. Paul and Mendota will give an update about the city, but also the school district will be providing an informational setting as well. So I'll send out the information to everyone who registered for this event today. Love to see you show up for that. It's been in our newsletter for a while, but if you haven't registered yet, please do so. It's a SurveyMonkey registration, and I think there'll be a lot of good information there as well. So yeah, that's what I have. Thanks so much for coming again. And how about one more round of applause for the folks who presented today? And thanks so much, everybody. Drive safe.